Friends, tell me, honestly, do you believe in prophecy? Do you believe that a man who spent his life in seclusion could, years before the events, name the exact day, hour, and even place where the war would end? And yet, such a man exists. Agathon, this gray-bearded monk, lives somewhere deep in the countryside, in a tiny cell, far from vanity, phones, and politics. And yet, even high-ranking people whispered about him. Because back in what seemed like the distant year of 2022, he said a phrase that made many people's hair stand on end. The world will return on the day when ice breaks, not only in rivers, but also in the hearts of those who hold the fate of the world in their hands. They will sit face to face on cold land, once bitterly divided, and sign that which will stop the blood. At the time, few understood what he meant. But just listen, his words held within them a hidden date, a place, and even a hint at the participants. And here's what's strange. Years of war passed, people grew tired. Some left, some lost their homes, some lost their loved ones. It seemed there would be no end. But recently, through back channels and closed diplomatic whispers, news leaked. Putin and Trump are preparing to meet in Alaska. In Alaska, friends. A cold, harsh place, yet deeply symbolic. Once Alaska was Russian land, then it became American. And now, it is there on this cold border of two worlds that they plan to sign a peace agreement. Do you understand what this means? Agathon said, cold land, bitterly divided. That is a direct reference to Alaska, and right now, intrigue is building in the world. Some whisper that the talks will be secret. Others say that in addition to Putin and Trump, a Ukrainian delegation will also be invited, but not to the main negotiation table. Instead, to a separate room, so that they can later join the agreement. So tell me, coincidence or destiny? I can't help but wonder, did Elder Agathon know more than he revealed? Perhaps he saw it all like a vision. The frozen bay. The table where two world leaders put their signatures, and in the corner, people realizing, this is it, the end of the war. But don't rush to rejoice, friends, because back in 2022, the elder added one more phrase, one that few quote: there will be joy in the homes, but fear in the hearts. For what is signed will mark the beginning of a new trial. So tell me, how should we understand this? Peace. And yet at the same time, another test. What was he talking about? And now, with only a few weeks left before the meeting in Alaska, many have started recalling those words. Some believe this will be the true, long-awaited peace. Others think it's just a frozen conflict, a pause before a new storm, but admit if there are far too many coincidences. The date, the place, the participants, and most importantly, the ice. In Alaska, this time of year, the rivers begin to crack, the ice starts to drift across the land, and this very symbol, the moving ice, fits perfectly with Agathon's words. I'll tell you this, if it all comes true, then Elder Agathon will be spoken of, not only here, but across the entire world. His name will enter the history books, like Nostradamus. For now, all we can do is wait and watch how those old words unfold. But just think about it, who organized these negotiations? Why Trump, and not the current US president? Why Alaska, and not Geneva or Anchorage? Some will say, coincidence. But I'll tell you, in politics, there are no coincidences. And so, friends, if everything goes according to plan, then on the very day the ice breaks in Alaska, the world may hear the news we've waited for so many years. The war is over, an agreement is signed. But will that be the true end, or just the beginning of something new? That is the main question, one that no one can answer yet. Except perhaps Elder Agathon, who, as we know, is now forever silent. Friends, do you know what's most interesting? All of this seems to have been prepared, not in a single day, or even a single month. Rumors of secret talks started back at the end of last year, but no one believed them. After all, how could one believe when it seemed there was a vast abyss between Moscow and Washington? And an even deeper abyss between Moscow and Kiev? And yet suddenly, there were leaks, diplomatic planes spotted in unusual places, strange visits to closed residences, sudden silence from certain loud politicians. And here's one more detail. Friends, American sources report that even before Trump announced his grand political comeback, he secretly met with mediators in Canada. And do you know where exactly? In a small town, just a stone's throw from Alaska. Funny, isn't it? Yet it was there, according to rumors, that he was handed the draft of the future peace agreement. On the Russian side, things weren't simple either. It's said that Putin agreed to the meeting only on one condition: no photo sessions for history. Until the signing itself, everything quiet, no spectacle. And how can we not recall Agathon, who said, they will sit face to face on cold land, as if he saw it all, a closed hall without cameras, only guards and interpreters. And now, pay attention. Alaska was not chosen by chance. It is a symbol. It is history. Once Russian land, later passed to the United States, a place where two worlds meet at the border. And it is there that two men are set to meet, two men on whom peace itself depends. But friends, the strangest thing is the silence. Neither the Kremlin nor Trump's headquarters officially confirm anything. Yet, through private channels, Photos are leaking images of crates with state emblems being unloaded at Alaskan ports. Diplomatic containers, communication equipment. You realize what such equipment is brought for? Only for top-level closed negotiations. In the Ukrainian press, debates are already in full swing. Will Kyiv's delegation be invited immediately, or only after Putin and Trump outline the draft framework? Security is checking every path, every building. They say even in nearby villages, people have already been warned. By the end of August, the roads will be closed, all private flights will be halted, and patrols will be reinforced. And here we stand, friends, on the threshold of a moment that could become a turning point. Either the end of the war or its new form. And the strangest thing is that everything is unfolding exactly according to the scenario foretold back in 2022 by an old gray-haired monk who lived in a tiny cell. We've gotten used to politics being a game behind closed doors, but this time the stakes are so high that even the walls can't hold back the leaks. The Putin-Trump meeting in Alaska is still ahead, but already now diplomatic sources reveal the talks will not be only about ending the war, but also about the future map of the world. They say the main topic is freezing the conflict, with a subsequent reformatting of borders. In the draft agreements being quietly discussed, there are several key points. Russia keeps control of part of the territory it currently holds but agrees to stop hostilities and withdraw troops from the front line to a prearranged distance. Ukraine receives international security guarantees and accelerated integration into Western structures, but in return agrees to grant temporary special status to certain regions. The U.S. and its allies lift part of the economic sanctions, but keep levers of pressure financial restrictions that can be reinstated in case of violations. A separate clause covers the exchange of prisoners and the return of deported citizens, to be one of the first gestures of trust after the meeting. Rumors also say they are discussing the economic future map. Russia would get limited access to global energy markets, but would be obliged to sell resources at fixed prices and through controlled channels. Ukraine, in turn, if the agreement is signed, would receive a massive recovery aid package, which, according to Americans, could rival the Marshall Plan. And now the most interesting part, friends. There is an opinion that Trump wants to secure the role of the U.S. as the main mediator, so that later America would control the enforcement of the agreement. For Putin, this meeting is a chance to lock in the status quo before the front turns against him, but there are also those who whisper, this is not peace, this is a deal. Because as beautiful as the words end of war and security guarantees may sound, behind the curtain, it's about redrawing spheres of influence. And here, once again, the words of Elder Agathon come to mind. After joy will come trial. Joy, that is silence at the front. Trial, that is life with new borders and new rules. And you, friends, what do you think? Should we rejoice at such a price for peace, or is this only the beginning of something larger? Let's speak honestly. Peace in politics never comes for free. Every word in the treaty will cost someone's lives, homes, and memories. And, as insiders say, the cards are already laid out on the table. According to the draft, allegedly to be placed before Putin and Trump at the end of August, the territorial division looks like this. 1. Crimea remains under Russia's de facto control, but the treaty will not contain formal recognition of this status by the international community. The West will propose the formula, de facto Russian, de jure disputed territory. This allows Moscow to save face domestically, while Washington and Kyiv avoid officially recognizing the annexation to Donetsk and Luhansk regions. Parts of the territories currently controlled by Russia are fixed under its administration as autonomous regions with special status, but legally remain part of Ukraine. Russia would be obliged to withdraw its troops from several key cities that will remain under Kyiv's control in order to create a security zone. The line of separation would run roughly where the current front line is, but with slight adjustments in Moscow's favor. 3. Zaporizhia and Kherson regions. The northern part of Zaporizhia region, including Zaporizhia city, and most of Kherson region, including Kherson city itself, return to full Ukrainian control. The southern territories, including Melitopol and the land corridor to Crimea, remain under Russian control until an international referendum is held in 5 to 7 years. 4. The rest of Ukraine. Ukraine receives security guarantees from the US, the UK, Poland, and several other NATO countries. These guarantees are not equal to NATO membership but imply immediate assistance in the event of new aggression. Western countries launch a massive reconstruction program. Roads, bridges, power grids, schools, hospitals. 5. General conditions. Exchange of all prisoners, everyone for everyone within 60 days after the signing of the treaty. Gradual lifting of some sanctions against Russia, conditional on fulfilling all terms of the agreement. A ban on moving troops closer than 20 kilometers to the separation line. A joint international UN and OSCE mission to monitor the borders. Friends, do you understand what this means? For some, it will be joy silence and an end to shelling. For others, Bitterness, because their hometowns will remain under a foreign flag. And here again, the words of Elder Agathon echo. After joy will come, trial. The trial is living with the fact that your homeland is divided. It's looking at a map where lines are drawn, not by justice, but by political deals. But, is this peace? Yes, in the sense that the guns will fall silent. Is this justice? A debatable question. But, as they say, there may be no other chance for silence in the coming years. That is why the meeting in Alaska at the end of August is not just negotiations, it's the redrawing of the map that will change the fate of millions. And in this world, everyone will pay their price. Friends, when the final stroke in the treaty is made and the signatures of Putin and Trump appear on the paper, the world will surely breathe a sigh of relief. Some will pop champagne. Others will call loved ones with tears in their eyes. It will be over, no more shooting. Explosions will cease in the cities. Checkpoints will disappear from the roads, and children will once again walk to school without fear. But let's be honest, it will be a special kind of peace. Peace with conditions. Peace in which the new borders are not fixed in people's hearts, but only drawn on paper. For some, it will be a long-awaited respite. For others, pain, because their home ended up on the other side of the line. And keep, they will say, we stopped the war and saved the country. In Moscow, we secured what is ours. In Washington, we brought peace and preserved balance. But behind all these words will stand one truth. It's a deal. And like any deal, it comes at a price. Elder Agathon warned, after joy will come trial. And perhaps that trial will begin the very day the guns fall silent. A trial of patience, the ability to live with injustice, the strength to wait for the next chance to reclaim what was lost. And here is the question. Friends, will this meeting in Alaska be the end of the war, or will it only pause it, leaving the world with its frozen conflict? That we will learn only with time. But one thing is already clear today. This August will go down in history, because it is then that the ice will break not only in the rivers of distant Alaska, but also in the hearts of those who hold the fate of millions. Politicians will argue, divide, bargain. But for us, one thing matters, that people stop dying. So, let's make sure that those who now sit at the negotiating table know, we want peace. We demand peace. And let these words be louder than any cannons. Write right now in the comments, I am for peace. Let this be our common voice, one that will be heard in Moscow, in Washington, and on every border.